everyone, I'm Sabila. I am, when we talk about what makes someone employable, I think there's two different ways to think about it. I think some people think about it in this like that they can get this one job kind of thing, can you get employed? And that is actually really different to what makes somebody employable. So we separate, I guess, the concept of employability from the concept of employment, because there's lots of people out there who actually have jobs, who are employed, who are not that employable. So it's a funny kind of concept. I think the idea of employability is that you have lots of long-term options, not that you can just get this one job in this one thing that you're a specialist in, but more that you can change your mind and you're future-proof. So if something massive happens, like a global pandemic, you can take what you've learned in one field and you can apply it to something else, so that you are always able to get employment, not just that you can get just the one kind of employment, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I know that having a little chat with you off screen earlier in the week, you told us that you've been traveling yourself. You're quite a well-traveled nomad of the world in pre-COVID times. Maybe can you? I mean, I'm always down for hearing about other people's experiences in their travels, what went right, what went wrong. But so what are the skills that you pick up from traveling? What are some of the things that you learn, but then sort of shine through when it comes to a career?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I am very well traveled. I think I've been to 49 countries. I'm trying to get to number 50, but they just keep closing the airlines down. I've lived in 5 other countries on 3 different continents, I think. So I really believe in, I guess, the transformative power of traveling, and the fact that that you can actually learn more about yourself and the world by traveling than nearly probably anything else. I think the big things that you build by traveling, for me personally, I have horrible luck when I'm traveling. So problem solving has been a massive one. I get myself into all kinds of situations and then have to try and pull myself out of them again. I would say that a communication that you've already touched on is an absolutely huge one. So really it fits really nicely with all the sort of employability skills, or these soft skills that you mentioned before, which include things like teamwork. I think when you travel, you have to bond together with other people in order to, make the most of your experiences and get through. So even if you go on your own, I think you do often end up kind of working in a team with people. You learn things like the curiosity involved. Like, I think curiosity, it's kind of an attribute, like it's something that some people have which leads them to travel, but it's also like a skill in a way. How you go about what you do with your curiosity. And I think that's a big thing you can get out of traveling. Self-management, can you look after yourself? And all of that kind of stuff, which is huge in COVID now that a lot of us don't work in the same offices as our managers and things like that. Being able to say, I'm independent, I could take myself off and look after myself without that help. I think that's a huge one that you can get out of traveling. And just basic stuff, planning and organizing,
Yeah, I think that's a terrific example. It's the curiosity one. That's a new one from me even, I suppose, that ties into so many different things, but just being curious and sort of receptive to your surroundings is something that sometimes I guess you can lose if you just stay in the same location and you do the same thing.
You can. I think there's a difference between being curious and going and reading about something on the internet, and a difference between and like being like, oh, I'm really curious about it, so I'm going to go and experience it for myself. Like,
yeah, and I think that plays out in the workplace as well. Certainly for me, it's you get so much more out of interactions with people when you start asking questions, where it's not just the, how you going, what's been happening, not much, okay, yep, good, okay, bye.
And the curiosity while you're somewhere else rather than reading about it also ties in with like risk analysis. Is it wise to, I'm curious about this, is it wise to follow this person down this alleyway?
Absolutely.
To analyze that situation.
It's like, I'm going to use a bad analogy here, but you know that thing where it's like some people say you should let kids touch the hot stove.
Yeah.
Do it. There's something about that, like that kind of life learning of actually following that person down the alleyway and then being, oh, bad call.
Sure, we've got some throwing in some parenting advice as well. Why not? While we're at it, let's take a beeline for that. So, what do you think then? Riffing off this sort of traveling narrative, I think that we've sort of answered a lot of these questions, but studying overseas or traveling more generally, like they can be extremely helpful towards your career. It sounds like just these experiences are something that you can draw upon and then use to explain how you've been a problem solver. What are there any other things, I suppose, that are helpful for that come out of traveling and living overseas that are specifically helpful towards your career, would you say?
I think that one of the biggest ones for me would be like your level of self-awareness, which I think only comes from being tested and finding out how you react in situations. And so I think traveling can help you work out who you are, and the better you know yourself, the better you can work out not just how to get a certain job or anything, but what jobs are going to suit you. If you find that you handle a certain kind of stress really badly, then you don't want to sign up for that specific kind of thing, so I think in terms of career fulfillment, you want something that actually suits who you are, and you can only make those decisions if you have a really clear understanding of who you are.
Sure. So you're sort of working out your tastes and preferences there as well. I guess through your experiences, you can work out that, like, oh, that was bad, or I didn't enjoy doing that thing, or it's like, I tried working in a supermarket and I loved it, or it wasn't for me. All sorts of different things where you might just pick up a job, or you might, that was a bad example.
But yeah, it is that thing where you find out like where you thrive and what you like, and a lot of the time you can't know for sure until you try things out, and going overseas offers you a lot.
Sure.
So the last one is something I'm actually really curious about, because I know lots of people, when they go on exchange, it's just seen as like a bit of fun, like, oh, you had fun in another country for a bit. But how can students use that experience and turn it into something tangible that they can talk about on their resume that will help them get a job?
Yeah, so this is something that I think is particularly great about something like exchange, is that so I think what we know now about the workforce is that it's getting more competitive by the minute. And so sometimes you'll see like one job and you'll have 200, 300 people applying for just one position. And what you find is that particularly in Australia, they like you to demonstrate your skills or your experiences and things like that. So it's this idea of, if you've demonstrated it before, you're able to demonstrate it for them in a different context in the future. So they want evidence that you've done things. You can't just say, I'm a great communicator. You have to give them like a solid example of how you're a good communicator. On that note, like what we start to see is you've got 300 people coming out of the same course, all going for the same job. And you might have a question in there that's about like, problem solving. Tell us about a time that you problem solved. And everyone else is like, oh, I had a group assignment and somebody wasn't carrying the load. And so, and you get 299 people talking about the same kind of example. And then if you can be the one person who's like, one time I had my bag, like I lost my bag at a bus station in Costa Rica, and these are the things that I did to overcome that. Like, that is just going to make you stand out. And it's also one of those like fun bonus things where it doesn't just give you a great example for that question, but it says other things about you. So it, even though they haven't asked you, are you independent? And are you curious about the world? And, it implies these extra skills without you having to directly talk about them. So I think the other thing is that the more I talk to employers, the more they say that they're not looking for a set of just skills. They're looking for like whole people. And traveling gives them something to remember you by, and something for them to kind of connect with you on. Have they been there? Have they had a similar experience in a different country? Those kinds of things, that it makes them think of you as a whole person, not just kind of like, I got an HD in this subject and I did this group assignment. Kind of thing.
I mean, well, we definitely think that helps, but yeah, absolutely.
Like you still need those things, but in terms of, so we call it like a competitive edge. So something that gives you an edge over competition, because unfortunately getting a job is not just reaching a certain standard. It's always going to be beating out the other people who are applying for the same job.
And this is something that I've thought about a few weeks ago as a way, because I know lots of students might find the idea of a virtual exchange or a virtual program a bit so-so. It's a bit of a difficult sell. But if all these students, there's a whole cohort of students who aren't able to go on exchange for the last 18 months. And so if you're somebody who's put yourself out there and done a virtual internship, that's going to make you stand out from other people when no one's able to go overseas at the moment.
Absolutely. I think initiative is probably one of the biggest things that we hear from employers that they feel like people lack. And so being able to say, look, this wasn't part of my course. This was just something I was interested in and I wanted to do more to make myself, employable and to build the skills and the experiences and things. And so I did something like this. It's a great example of initiative. And it,
I think that's terrific. That's a really great point on initiative. I hadn't even thought of that example, but just how, let's say you're an employer, you ask someone, well, what did you do for the last 18 months during lockdown? And most people are like, oh, sat on the couch, ticked over my 4 units or something like that. Where we do see that differentiation or making yourself the most eligible candidate, I think these sorts of these micro credentials or these little, these small points where you say like, oh, I actually put myself out there and learned something different to all the rest of these guys. I think that's really going to shine through. And that's terrific. I think we should probably, we should jump on to the next couple of slides. Thank you again, Sibylla, for joining us. For any students that are interested, I think they can make a meeting, like a one-on-one meeting with you, Sibylla, is that right? Through Career Hub?
Not with me, but with someone in my team. But I'm just going to pop up in the chat our main website. So Career Hub is where you can book a one-to-one appointment.
Right.
I'll pop up in the chat where you can come to all of our workshops and get all of our online resources and everything.
Terrific, nice one. And you'll have some sessions, I imagine. Yeah, as you said. No, that's cool. Okay.
I think you're coming along to talk at one tomorrow, Patrick.
I'll give it a go. Let's see what we can come up with. But again, thanks for joining us, and we'll press on. Feel free to stick around for questions till the end. Otherwise, you've done us a service, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.